I played the second game, Pilotwings 64, a lot when it was first released, but for some reason the original never appealed much. In all the pictures in all the magazines, it just kind of looked boring. I mean, who could be bothered going parachuting when you could save Dinosaur Land or race hovercrafts in the future? Apparently, I want to join the Flight Club. The first rule of Flight Club is, you do not talk about Flight Club. There's a number of different vehicles to master, which gives the game a good variety of challenges. There's the aeroplane, the parachute, the rocket belt, the hang glider, and in a kind of boss level, the helicopter. Now, some of this stuff is really very difficult to control and it requires a lot of practice to learn how to do it right. I gotta say though, it was fun seeing how I could make the most spectacular crashes. Overall, Pilotwings is a fun game, but it's very difficult and it demands perfection. I almost found the challenge too much, but I did persevere and I think the game still stands the test of time. It's put me off doing any of this stuff for real though. Street Fighter 2 just had its 20th anniversary, so what a nice coincidence that I'm up to it this week in the year of retro gaming. It took me a while to appreciate Street Fighter 2, I've got to say. I can remember seeing kids crowded around it in the arcades and wondering why they thought it was so great. The graphics were certainly nice for the time, but it was just one guy beating up another guy. What's the big deal? It's like a Mega Man game with nothing but the boss fights. Then one night, while I was waiting around in Melbourne Airport doing not much, I stood and watched some guys playing it and began to realise that this game actually has a lot of depth. Not only that, but it's got some really cool characters. So I went and asked my mum for a few dollars and I began to play. Well, that was it. I've been a Street Fighter fan ever since. There were so many different versions of Street Fighter 2, it's ridiculous. The Super Nintendo was the first console to get the game, and they must have sold a gazillion units just because people wanted the Street Fighter love in their lounge room. It was amazingly expensive though, 169 Australian dollars when it was first released, almost double the price of other games. Even still, it's sold by the bucket load. So the original version is... well, it's okay, the game's still there. It feels really slow though. There's a certain appeal of playing the original. There's a simplicity about it, a kind of innocence. Only 8 characters to choose from. I reckon modern fighting games have way too many characters. By just concentrating on the 8, you felt like you really got to know them better. And each character has their own individual fighting styles, well, except for Ken and Ryu of course. And everyone had their favourite. My original favourite was Honda, but I've since become a Ken man. The next release was called Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition, which let you play as the bosses. Champion Edition was eventually released on Super Nintendo as well, called Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and this let you boost the speed up to ridiculous levels. Amazingly, the unthinkable was done with this version. It was ported to the Mega Drive, and that shut the loud and proud Nintendo fans up. Looking at the comparisons, the Mega Drive does a pretty good job of emulating the graphics. The limitation of only having 64 colours on screen means it could never look as nice as the Super Nintendo, which can have up to 256. Even still, Mega Drive owners could be happy that they had a complete version of the game to call their own, even if the music and voice sampling was terrible. The third release was Super Street Fighter 2. This was actually a proper reimagining of the original game. A lot of the artwork was completely redone and 4 new characters were added to the roster. Not only that, but Capcom apparently employed Big Bird to be the announcer.
You win!
This is the version that I eventually bought. To my mind, it's the definitive version. Everything was more balanced out. Even Ken and Ryu were given different fighting styles. Ken with his flaming dragon punch and Ryu with his flaming fireball. I think the thing that's great about Street Fighter 2 is, although it requires an awful amount of skill to master, skill that I've never really had by the way, it's so easy to just pick up and play. I think that's where Street Fighter 3 was a bit of a letdown. It was created entirely for the hardcore Street Fighter fans, and to play the game properly took a lot of training and practice, even on the easiest difficulty setting. So does Street Fighter 2 stand the test of time? Of course it does. I definitely recommend the new Challengers version over the others though. Even better is the remake that's available to download on PS3 and 360. Very cool. Next week... something truly legendary. Peace out.